Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here. We have a very informative webinar planned for you. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and you'll get a link to the recording as soon as we conclude. If you're an architect or involved in the code compliance process at your firm, you'll enjoy our webinar today. We'll learn how UpCodes can help structure your code research and manage code compliance across the life cycle of your projects. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Cheyenne and I lead operations here at UpCodes. I'm joined today by Nanad Garware, Customer Success Manager at UpCodes. Nanad is a licensed architect who has designed multiple projects across different typologies like urban design and master planning, mixed-use developments, high-rise residential projects, commercial office buildings, and more at firms like HOK, Handel Architects, and Curtis and Ginsberg Architects. We're so excited to be with you here today. Our agenda for today. We'll take some time to tell you more about UpCodes, what's included in the platform, and the value our customers are finding. And then we'll walk through how to structure your code research around projects. After that, we've saved some time at the end for your questions, so please feel free to add in your questions at any time during this webinar via the Q&A button in your Zoom window. So let's take a few minutes to look at the UpCodes platform. We all know code research is highly fragmented, whether it's knowing which codes are relevant or navigating the various iterations of code adoptions and amendments. All of this is time-consuming, fragmented, and expensive. And then understanding how specific code requirements translate into real-world applications can take hours, if not days. Not to mention the time needed to generate accurate code reports and analyses specific to a project. And then after all of that, trying to communicate your code research to external stakeholders on a given project can also be tricky. Most organizations don't have a dedicated solution for code research and compliance. There are a wide range of dedicated solutions for project management, specification writing, drafting, authoring, plan review, and visualization, but there isn't a compelling solution out there for code compliance. This is why we started UpCodes. With UpCodes, anyone involved in the design, construction, or occupancy of a building can spend less time searching for the right code and more time designing and building amazing things. You have a consolidated platform for code visibility and access that enables automated and structured research that can be easily shared and referenced by anyone on the team. And since we've started, we've seen a significant uptick in usage and adoption across architecture, engineering, general contractors, building officials, and plan examiners, and ownership groups. So effectively, UpCodes is the missing piece in the AEC software suite. UpCodes is this all-in-one code compliance platform. It effectively modernizes code compliance and is the perfect solution for anyone involved in the compliance lifecycle, from design to construction to occupancy of a building. Our platform includes online code library and search, tools to better understand and get familiar with the code, tools for collaboration and compliance management, and finally, a way to automate your code requirement analysis. And that's a quick overview of UpCodes. And now let me hand over things to Nanad, who will walk you through how to structure your code research around projects.
Thanks, Cheyenne, for the great introduction to me and to UpCodes. Before I begin, I definitely would like to encourage anyone on the call who's not already a user of UpCodes to sign up for a free trial on our website. You can walk through with me as I show you all of our features on the website. I think it would be a great introduction to our platform. It's free. You can use it for 2 weeks and then cancel it at the end of it if you don't want to continue. But definitely encourage doing that. So my name is Nanad Garware. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New York, and I've practiced architecture in the United States for more than a decade. And I've had my frustrations with inefficiencies in the profession, especially with production and documentation, and I always push for automated solutions. So I've been a big user of Trimble Connect, Smartsheet, Revit plugins like Ideate and PyRevit, and always try to push these technologies at the firms that I worked in. And so that's where UpCodes caught my eye. When I was practicing architecture, I used UpCodes a lot. In my last role as a project architect at HOK San Francisco, I used it throughout my design process, from schematic design to construction administration. And I really like the product. It's a really powerful tool. I got inquisitive about the company. I really wanted to work there, and it all worked out. The best part about UpCodes is that the team at UpCodes is not just tech professionals. They are also professionals who worked for a very long time in the AEC industry. We have architects, engineers, code officials, people who worked in the NYC TOB, for example, for a long time. And so all these professionals come together to build the best code compliance platform you can find online. As a customer success manager, I essentially work with customers across the country. So architecture firms, engineering firms, construction firms that have adopted UpCodes as their code compliance platform. And I make sure that all of their goals are met and exceeded. And so that really is my focus here at UpCodes. What I'd like to do today is give you a walkthrough of what a typical code analysis process would look like if I was still practicing architecture, talk about all of the pain points that we face as design professionals, or even government officials, or if you're a contractor, and how UpCodes can solve all of those issues. I'd like to develop a project in the state of California using the 2019 code on UpCodes. And so with that being said, I'll get started and share my screen. All right, Cheyenne, could you confirm to see my screen?
Yep.
Thank you.
There.
All right. So when you first log into UpCodes, you land on the home page. This is a good snapshot of what UpCodes has to offer. You have all of your feature links on the left. So you have your homepage, your code library, search features, projects, diagrams, and bookmarks. And you also have some help tools on the bottom left there. The projects that you have worked on show up at the top. Also jurisdictions that you recently viewed, and specific code sections within those jurisdictions or code books that you viewed down below. You also have a notifications toolbar on the right, where you can be notified about new content on the website, any updates that we made, any new codes that are available, for example. And you have your admin console on the top right. So to set up a new project, I would do it as I would do it for any other software. In Revit, if you're using Revit Server or you're using BIM Cloud, any software that you use to set up a new project, I would do exactly the same thing here. To do that, I would go to Projects and set up a new project. Right before I do that, though, I want to show you what my project library looks like. So under my projects, these are all the projects that I have created or that I have been invited to by my team members. Team projects are projects that have been created within my organization. I may not necessarily be a part of those projects, but I have visibility to them. Archive projects are projects that have already been created, worked through, and then archived to be used as templates later on. And examples are projects that UpCodes has developed in our in-house that firms can use as a template or as a starting point for their own projects. So I'm going to set up a new project, and I'm going to call it test project 1. I want to set it up under the California jurisdiction. I can, of course, choose any state or jurisdiction that I want. So I hit California, and I can select the code year, the code cycle. I'll select 2019 just for this example. This toggle here lets the project be visible to my entire organization. And by that, I mean all of the UpCodes premium members within the organization. I hit create project. And this should bring you to your project homepage. When you are on your project homepage, there are several features that you have immediate visibility to. One is the bookmarks and comments section. You have the code calculation section, and you have the sharing or collaborative tool section. Before I get started with anything, I'd like to make sure that all of my settings are correct. I cannot change my jurisdiction once a project has been set up. To do that, I either need to duplicate it or set up a new project. I go under settings, and this is where I can check my project status. Currently, it is active. I could also lock it so nobody edits it, or I can archive it if I want to set up as a template. I'm going to go ahead and invite a few collaborators. So for this example, I'm going to assign personas to Cheyenne and a couple of other colleagues of mine, Ashish and Mitch. So I'm going to invite Cheyenne. Cheyenne's going to be the technical principal on this project. Ashish is going to be the job captain. And Mitch is going to be the intern. I know a lot of firms like to name their project in a particular way. To do that, I would go into settings and hit rename. And let's say I want to have a job number and to start the project. I can do that here. All right. So now my project is set up. I want to start my code research process. I go to codes, and you'll notice that as soon as I hit codes, it brought me to the California building codes and the code cycle 2019. And that's because my project was set up under that particular jurisdiction and that particular code cycle. So there's no longer, searching for a particular code book. I don't know where to find this code book. It's all there and set up for you. On the top left, you'll notice this drop-down menu. This essentially gives you access to all of the other projects that you are a part of. I'm currently in the test project, so I'm going to stay there. And then I start my code analysis process. So I open the code book that I want. All of the chapters are organized on the left. And I can open this drop-down menu to go into the chapters. I'm going to go back for a second. If I do not want the CBC 2019 and I want the California residential code, I can open that code book. What's great is that I also know all of the adoption info that has gone into the code books. There are also links to the original documents. So if I click on that, it takes me to the website that hosts the official documentation. And it also gives me the effective dates for those particular code cycles. Going back into the code book, I start looking through definitions. Now, Mitch is an intern. He doesn't really have as much working knowledge of the codes as Ashish, Cheyenne, or me. He needs to understand what a particular term means, accessible means of egress. To do that, I do not need to screenshot it. I do not need to do anything fancy. All I do is click on it. It generates a unique URL. I can go to my email service and I can paste it in there and I can share it with Mitch. What I could also do though, is I could copy a link to the entire definitions section of the codebook. To do that, I click on copy link, go to my email client and paste it in there. And I can say, Mitch, please review these definitions. If I want to, I can also print it as PDF and download the PDF, make any markups that I want using Bluebeam, and then send it across to Mitch. In addition to that, I could also make a comment on the code section within the code book itself. This section is very long, so I'm going to change my example and I'm going to go to chapter 3, business group D. I'm going to add a comment here. And since I have already added Mitch, Ashish, and Cheyenne to the project, I can tag any of them and say, Mitch, please review this. Post it. Once I post this comment, it stays within the project for that particular code section for the entirety of the project. It'll always remain there. Let's say I leave the firm tomorrow and my account is no longer valid. The comment will still be there. It'll be tagged to me. It'll also show me when it showed the date when it was created. This is great because it helps you create an entire knowledge base or a written document, a history of the code research that you've done. For this particular project, I know that it's a commercial building in California under 2019 code. So I'm going to bookmark certain code sections that I know that are relevant to my project. When I bookmark code sections, they all get collected under the project. Select that, not the residential, but the mercantile. Do that. And to view them, I go back to my project, and the bookmarks and comments section that I showed previously collects all of those code sections that I have bookmarked. It also includes any comments that I previously made. And to view a particular code section within the bookmarks, I can either click on the bookmark itself, or I could go to see more, expand the bookmark, and it should show me the content of the code itself. The reason why it's not showing me the content is because I bookmarked the topic, but if I do bookmark the actual description of the code section, go back there and open it up, it includes all the code content there as well. All right. Going back into the code book, I'm going to continue my code research. I know that Ashish and Mitch are designing the egress and the stairs within this project. So I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this and comment, Ashish, Mitch, please review this. You'll notice that within the code book, there are certain code chapters that are colored differently. There's also content that's colored differently. This essentially highlights the jurisdictional modifications that have been made to the code. You can change the way this looks by adjusting the amendment styling. Under change code, you find this drop-down option. You can select the same color as base code text, or you could view amended sections only. I'm going to change the color to make it look the same as the base code text. And so you see now the amendments are no longer highlighted differently. The amendments still do exist, and that's identified by this amendment tab right here. I'm going to go back to what I had before. Cheyenne has just come over to me. She's a technical principal in this office. And she's told me that there's a possibility that this project may actually be filed for permit under the 2022 code. And that's a problem because I do not know the changes or differences between the 2022 code and 2019 code. And I want a quick way to view those. I'm going to run code compare. Code compare allows me to view the codes side by side, the differences, and not just for one particular jurisdiction. I can change the jurisdiction. I'm going to leave my base jurisdiction as California and the CBC 2019 and change the code that I'm comparing to the 2022 cycle. When I hit go, I need to give it a couple of seconds to run. And when it does run, it gives me a side-by-side comparison of the two code books with all of the differences highlighted. The UpCodes engine is really powerful. It is able to identify even small, if there's a space difference in some words, it's able to identify those differences and highlights them for you. This is a really quick way of identifying what has changed and being aware of it as you're designing. So you can see that section 10.03.5, exception 1 has changed in 2022 cycle. I want to make sure that Ashish and Mitch are aware of this. So I hit stop compare, go back to that specific code section, make a note of it. This has been updated in the 2022 cycle. Use review. This comment stays for the life of the project. So that was code compare. Mitch has just walked over to me and he's been speaking to the electrical engineer. There's a minimum foot candle requirement for egress lighting that he is not aware of. He doesn't know where to find that information, and he comes to me. What I'm going to guide him to do is use search. To run search, all I do is type in the term that I want to search. And this will give me search results across the code book. What's interesting about this is because I was within the CBC code book, the results that it gave me were for the CBC code book only. However, I can select all of the relevant code books for the 2019 code cycle, and it'll search through all of those code books and find the term foot candle. Once it does that, it also tells me where it found the term. For example, the first search result was within the CBC 2019, but you note that it's also within the California fire code. When I click on that, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have clicked on that. Once I click on the search result, it'll bring me to that exact code section where the foot candle has been noted. You can see that you require 1 foot candle minimum at any point 0.1 along the path of egress. When you go back, you can also change the code cycle within the search itself. So you can search through the 2022 cycle, 2016 cycle. Let's say you're a firm in New York City and you work across the river. So you're doing a project in New Jersey. You could just as easily change the jurisdiction up here to New Jersey. And it brings up all of the relevant code year collections that we have. So 2022, 2018, 2015, etc. And searches through all of the relevant codes for those particular books. So Mitch has been doing pretty well. He's designing stairs, he's checking for lighting requirements. Ashish and him are now looking at accessibility requirements. I'm going to go to chapter 10. Sorry, egress requirements. I'm going to go to stairways. So as they start designing the stairway, they have a lot of questions about what's required, what's not required. And it's really hard for me to point them to text. But I do know that UpCodes has diagrams. So you see here that the diagrams show up. They don't exist for every code section, but our diagram collection is growing pretty quickly. We're already at over 800 diagrams, plan to go to around 1,600 diagrams by the end of the year. But these diagrams are essentially visual interpretations of the code. They also tell you that there are related sections where those diagrams are used. These diagrams should be used as a design resource. They are not actual designs, but they should be used as guides for design. And they're really made to educate staff or to inform staff about code or language and how it should be interpreted. I can share this diagram by either taking a snapshot of it and pasting it in an email, or I could copy a link and paste it in an email too. Cheyenne has just walked over to me, and as a technical principal, she wants to review all of the relevant comments that are made and any bookmarks that are made for California projects across all code cycles. When I click on bookmarks, I can go here and filter them by California. So these are essentially comments made on all of the building codes that are relevant to California. If I want to look at the 2022 code cycle, I can filter it down by 2022. She wants me to send this to her as a PDF. All I need to do is export these bookmarks. It downloads a PDF. This PDF also contains the comments that we've made, in addition to the actual code content that has been bookmarked. And the great thing is that the PDF itself is bookmarked. So you can jump between chapters really easily. I'd like to note that you can also do this within the project itself. We'll go back to the project that I had created. When you hit see more, you can hit export bookmarks. That downloads PDF for you. All right, so we've spoken about code books, we've spoken about search, we've spoken about diagrams, and we've spoken about bookmarks. I'd like to really touch upon a very powerful feature that UpCodes has, and that is the code calculators. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a really simple example to the code calculators. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, but for the sake of this webinar, I'd like to do a really quick calculation to show you how it works. So this is a ground plus 5-story building. I'm going to assign the first floor as 15 feet. And I'm going to assign a bunch of spaces here. So copy north, south. I'm going to add a corridor there. I'm going to add some mechanical space. And I'm going to add a public assembly space. I'm then going to select an occupancy. Now, let's say Mitch, who's an intern, doesn't know how to select an occupancy. He can just as easily scroll all the way down and use the occupancy guide, which brings up a bunch of questions that he has to answer based on what the space is going to be used for. At the end of this questionnaire, UpCodes will recommend an occupancy that you can then set and close. I didn't answer the questions properly. This should actually be mercantile. It's going to be business, business. Mechanical is going to be S2. Public space is going to be unconcentrated A3. Simply unconcentrated. You can then add square footage for each of these, and it'll automatically calculate your occupant load based on the occupant load factor. Take this with a grain of salt. It's not a project. I'm just doing this as an example. All right, and my net square footage is going to be 3,000. All right. Once that is done, I'm going to also add some exits here. So public exit 1, office exit 1, office exit 2, retail exit 1. And I can then connect these spaces to the relevant exits. I'm going to connect my corridor to the office space itself. Mechanical space with office space. And the public space has its own dedicated exit. Quick to note, if I do not select an exit, UpCodes will highlight that you need to select an exit from a space so it can run its calculations. All right. I'm going to add a couple of stories above, make them 10 feet each. I want to repeat them since it's the same floor plan going up, and 5 floors. I'm going to say this is an open office and some mechanical spaces. All right. This is going to be B occupancy. It's going to be S2. And of course, you can choose what you need to. Select business and accessory. And let's say it's 15,000. 1,200, 1,500. All right. Calculated my occupant loads. I'm going to add 2 stairways here to go down. Stair A and stair B. All right. And I'm going to connect this to my office space. My mechanical space opens out into the open office. All right. So that being done, I'm going to scroll down. And then there are a lot of questions that I still need to answer that help me calculate the compliance requirements for these 4 categories. So that's height and areas, egress, fire ratings, and plumbing. In order to do that, I need to answer all of these questions. Type of construction. That image does not know what type of construction the building is. I can scroll down, hit the construction type calculator, and it gives me this cool calculator where I can adjust the project settings to let me know what is compliant and what is not. My project is 6 stories, so I cannot be 2A, 2B, or 3A, or 3B. I'm going to select 1B for now. 1B. Sprinkler system NFPA 13. It's a new construction. This is a California requirement. It's an area increase, and it's not owned by state. You can also input building perimeter and site information and answer a couple of questions about the use of the space, and so on and so forth. When I hit next module, it'll ask me a couple of questions which are specific to egress. And so on and so forth. For the sake of the webinar, I'm going to hit save and view requirements, which essentially runs the calculator. And on the left, you see a check mark next to height and areas. That means that the calculator has enough information to check for compliance in that particular category. I have not input enough information for it to calculate egress, fire ratings, and plumbing, but you can see that it creates an entire calculation for the project. So there's building data, there's heights and areas, what is designed, what is allowed, the building height in feet, and if it's compliant. looks like all of it is compliant. Egress, it gives you minimum exits for space, exit for story, etc., etc., etc. You can then download this code sheet either as an Excel file that you can then format and place into your Revit sheet, or you could export it as a PDF. So I'm going to save this and downloads. And what I'm also going to do is go back to my bookmarks and export this as a PDF. So now I have my code sheet as well as my bookmark collection that I'm going to then attach to my email and shoot it over to whoever I need to. Let's say in this case, it is Cheyenne, since she's the technical school. Send. And in addition to it just being a PDF on the server, it always lives on the UpCodes platform. So if Cheyenne leaves, if Smith leaves, if Ashish leaves, if I leave, it's always there under your account, your company account. All right, so with that being said, I know we are already at 30 minutes. I'd like to jump back to the presentation real quick and talk about what we did learn today. So we've learned how to develop a project-based approach to code analysis. We've learned how to document all of this code analysis and knowledge and how to share it across your firm. You also learn how to perform code calculations, share results. You can also verify these results on the code calculator. There's a C calculation tab that lets you verify all of the results that UpCodes has created. And it helps you educate staff and share resources across the firm. One item that I would also like to touch upon is the live chat functionality. You can type in any question that you have. When is the 2026 cycle? And of course, take this with a grain of salt. But our service specialist essentially gets back to you within 5 minutes. And if we do not have the answer for you, we can get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. I don't think any other service offers this. It's really a great benefit that UpCodes has to offer. And with that, Cheyenne, I'll hand it back to you for any questions that we received during this call.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Nanad. That was great. So we do have a couple of questions, and I'm just sorting through those at the moment. Are you able to add external stakeholders, like consultants, to projects? And if so, how would you do that?
It's a great question. Yes, you can absolutely do that. I'm going to go back to my project. And under the invites tab, you just need to type in the email address of the consultant, send them an invite. If they do not have an UpCodes premium subscription, they will not be able to join the project. However, if you have extra licenses under your company account, you could easily assign them a license and they can join your project.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Nanad. All right, so we have a question here from Becky. Does the code calculator filter the applicable code section?
It does. So I'm going to open the code calculator results. And when you open the results, you're able to edit inputs into the calculator, but you're also able to see calculations. When you hit see calculations, it provides you a summary of how UpCodes has reached the result. And within that, there are hyperlinked sections that take you to all the relevant code sections that have been used to run the calculation. I hope that answers your question, Becky.
Thanks, Nanad. And here's another question. Can you import the code calculator's Excel sheet and export into Revit?
Absolutely. You need a plugin in Revit. I believe ID8 develops a few, but yes, you can absolutely import into Revit. The one recommendation that I do have is when you do download an Excel file, it's not a calculated form, so it's just fields. So do not make any adjustments to the numbers because it would not compute calculations. But you can absolutely format it in any way you want and then bring it into Revit or PDF it and then link it into Revit.
Thanks, Vinod. All right, so we have a question here from Brian. So is the company account always accessible to company management? So for example, the account owner or account admin. So if a person leaves, is the personal account closed to the company? Or is that information still there?
That's a great question. It depends on the information itself. So for example, if the person has created a project and has invited collaborators, then yes, the project will still exist in the collaborators library. If they have made comments, then yes, those comments will still exist. If they've made any bookmarks under their own, there's a My Bookmarks tab, which is sort of your own project. Those will not be visible to the rest of the company, just because that user no longer exists. But if that email address still exists and the login still exists, let's say you have a generic address that you use to collect bookmarks or technical information, anybody could use that login to get in and then access the information that has been stored in that account.
Thanks, Vinod. All right. Here's a great question. How can I verify the calculations from the code calculator?
Great question. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the code calculator again for my particular project. So I touched upon this to respond to Becky's question, but when you click on C calculation, it provides you a summary of everything that UpCodes has run to make sure that the building design is in compliance. If it is not in compliance, it generally shows up as a big red box, and you need to edit inputs again to make sure that the building is brought under compliance. But yes, so all of the relevant code sections have been hyperlinked in here. And we actually do encourage users to make sure that the calculations are right. You definitely want to go in and check all the calculations, not just to verify the calculations, but just make sure that you're at peace with the calculations. If you have to answer the owner or a building official as to how you got to the conclusion that you did, it's always good to know that information. It's also a great learning tool for junior staff. You can mentor them to do a great, knowledge building exercise by going through all the calculations that you've already done for particular projects.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Anand. We have a question from Don. And Don, I know that this has been a topic on your mind recently. When will we support code calculators for residential projects?
That's a good question. We don't have it on our timeline right now, Dawn. We've definitely brought it up with the product team, and it's something they're considering. But I know your question is specific about New Jersey, so we will get back to you on that. We don't have a particular timeline right now.
All right, thanks, Anand. And we have a question here from Brian. He's kind of parsing back to a previous part of the presentation. So in the building composition calculator, the 10-foot/5-foot designation that Nanad you selected represents what exactly? Obviously not the square footage of the floor. So Nanad, would you mind clarifying that?
Sure. Could you repeat the question once again, Cheyenne?
Sure. So in the building composition calculator, the 10 feet by 5 feet designation that you selected represents what? Obviously not the square footage of the floor. And we can always come back to
I think, sorry. I think he's talking about this. Yes, so it's the floor height. Sorry about that. So the 10 feet is the floor height, and the 5 is, because it's a repeated, I just assume that it's a block that's repeated up. So it's repeated 5 times. So you have floors 2 through 6 that are 10 feet each. So that's about 50 feet of height.
Perfect. I hope that helps, Brian. All right. So here is another question. So I'm on the website and do not see a few adopted code books that I require, and I have some feature recommendations. How do I inform your team about these types of requests?
Great question. So we have the live chat. Look, I guess Gabriella has already responded to me about 2026 codes. You could send us a request there. You could also, we have a feedback feature here. You could send us, if you have code requests, if you have product recommendations, feature requests, feel free to send them our way. We have a really lean team, but we pay attention to every request that comes in. It's also my job as a CSM to be aware of everything that our users need and have faith in the growth of our product and our company. So feel free to send it our way. We'll definitely take a look.
Great. And yeah, just to reiterate, we love feedback. We love hearing from the community. So please do reach out to us if you have any type of feedback. We're always looking to incorporate that feedback into the product. All right, so here is another question. Do you offer mechanical ventilation calculators?
At the moment, we do not, but our user base is expanding to include a lot of MEP firms, and that has been at the top of priority lists and a request actually from a lot of the firms. So we do not have one right now, but I do see us developing one in the near future.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you, Ninad. And here is another question. How do I sign up for a free trial for me and my team?
Great question. And that's a great segue into my next slide, actually. So if you go to the UpCodes website, if you are looking for an enterprise license, let's say you want to get it for 11 people or more, you would need to contact a sales team. Mitch here is the sales manager. You could do that by clicking contact sales, or you could try for free, create an account. It's free for 2 weeks, after which you'll be billed. But if you want to look at what all the features are that you get along with your account, you could go to this page and click on see all details. And this has a complete list of all the features that you are access to. A premium membership essentially gives you access to everything UpCodes has to offer in terms of tools and features. There's nothing on the website that's restricted if you are a paying subscriber. With the enterprise account, you get access to customer success manager, that is me, and also I run onboardings, one-on-one training sessions or group training sessions, and we can prioritize feature requests and content requests as well. Thank you everyone so much for joining, and thank you Ninad for presenting. It was great to have you all here, and we will see you at the next webinar. All right, thank you everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your day.